I just lost the game, and you also lost it when you clicked on this video or saw the thumbnail. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about and were confused by what game I'm talking about, well, I'm talking about the game. You know the game. What's that? You don't know what I'm talking about? Well then, let me explain the rules of the game. Rule number 1. Everyone in the world is playing the game. A person cannot refuse to play the game, it does not require consent to play, and no one can never stop playing it. 2. Whenever one thinks about the game, one loses. 3. Losses must be announced. This can be verbally, with a phrase such as "I just lost the game," or in any other way, for example, via Facebook or other social media. So basically, I just made multiple of you people lose the game. But that can't be all what this video is about. It can't just be me saying I lost, though. I would like to pose a question. Who made the game? Where does the game come from? Well, we need to go back to when the game was getting popular. The first mention of the game as we know it comes from an old blog post from 2002 on August 10th. The game I lost. Okay, I'm gonna tell you about the game. I have no idea where or when this started. I found out about it online about 6 months ago. I'd quite like to know the origins of the game because it is intensely irritating. Firstly, a disclaimer. Anyone who decides to join the game cannot blame me for any psychological damage caused. Okay, there's only one rule to the game. If you think about the game, you lose. When you lose, you have to declare it. You have to say out loud, "I lost." Once you've said that, anyone else playing the game around you will lose and will have to declare it too. Once you've forgotten about the game, you stop losing. As I am telling you about the game, I have lost, and so are you, because you're thinking about the game, but you will go away and forget about the game, and you will stop losing until someone says something or you see something that makes you think of the game. So this is where the game comes from, right? Wrong! Because people under the comments state that they had been playing the game before this post existed. Ash said on May 20th, 2005, "I really want to find out where this game started. I worked with someone in their 40s and they told me that they had been playing since he was 17. I've been playing the game for years, learned it on mixmag.net in about 99, and it features at www.maggiethatcher.com/game.html. Now, something you might notice is that the last quote references Margaret Thatcher.
Ding dong, the wicked bitch is dead.
Well, that's because the game has some roots with England. Now, there were some people in the comments from the United States, but it was still a majority of British people who remember hearing about the game. And one of the biggest websites about the game, losethegame.net, is run by John T. Haywood, who's also British, and his website would become a hub for people who would email him and say, "Yeah, my dude Keith created a game in 2000 at the playground. Yeah, but that was before he got third-degree burns over 90% of his body. Oh, you want proof? Well, And this makes sense because the game is a hard thing to claim to invent. Something that is thought up and doesn't exist. I mean, it could not have just appeared one day, because as simple as the game is, there could not be a way the game hasn't existed for multiple hundreds of years. And technically, it has existed for lots of years, just not as the game. Famed Russian writer Lev Tolstoy wrote about a game he played with his brother, which had a condition that has similarities to the game. These conditions were, first, to stand in a corner and not think of the white bear. I remember how I used to get into a corner and endeavor, but could not possibly manage not to think of the white bear. And not just that, a different writer who isn't as well known but is also Russian, called Fyodor Dostoevsky, finally I had to record that 50 times, mentions the exact same game in one of his books. Try to pose for yourself this task, not to think of a polar bear, and you will see that the cursed thing will come to your mind every minute. More and more variations would exist, but after a while it got forgotten about. But then one variation that did not seem to fit this theme of not trying to think of something would be mentioned in an article by David Fowler and American mathematics professor Anatole Beck called "A Pandora's Box of Non-Games," would describe a game called Finchley Central. Two players alternate, naming the stations of the London Underground. First to say Finchley Central wins. Now, this is a slight breakthrough since we finally have something that relates to Britain in this game, but it's not anyway similar to the game. But hold on, everything will be explained in time. Now, Finchley Central seems like a dumb game because what is stopping me from just saying Finchley Central first and winning? But it's an unspoken rule not to do that because that's mean. Finchley Central would, after a while morphed into something else in around 1978.
Now we're going to play the game called Mornington Crescent. We've had some complaints that the rules have been getting too complicated of late. So to prevent confusion, we shall play teams by the original and modern rules this time.
It's ours in 3, pal-mal.
Oh, yes. In fact, he can't do anything, can he?
No.
Charlotte Street, Mornington Crescent.
And John?
Mornington Crescent is a really weird British game from the BBC Radio 4 show. I'm sorry, I haven't a clue. The rules of the game are always changing and always more complex. It's just Finchley Station, but instead of Finchley Station, it's Mornington Crescent, a different station. Now you might ask where the fun is in a game with convoluted rules, and the answer to that is that's the joke. The entire point of Mornington Crescent is to pretend that it's this complex strategic game when it isn't, and for the players to try and make it seem like it's hard to just say Mornington Crescent. Or I read the wrong set of rules. Maybe I read the original modern rules instead of the original ancient rules. I don't know, this game is too hard for me to understand. But Finchley Station would be a much important part of the story, because in 2007, John T. Haywood would get an email by Adrian McCrickard that would connect all of this together. He said he was told what the game was by someone in 1982, but instead of being called the game, it was actually a variation about Finchley Station, where you were not allowed to think about that station. The game was taught to me by one of the 3 guys on the platform that night. They were just waiting for the train after a night out. Obviously, you can't stay in the station all night as they were closed after 12ish. Unfortunately, I cannot remember his name. If it comes to me, I'll let you know. But he was a scientist, physics I think, from Esher. He had a yellow Triumph Spitfire and collected vintage port. This was in 1982, and I seem to remember it was invented while he was at university, which would have made it 1979 to 1981. The website would get mentioned in the British newspaper Metro, which would cause someone to email them in 2008 who claimed to have been there when something similar to the game was invented. The man Philip Bryce would email John T with his story. A game suspiciously identical to the game was invented in 1976 in the Horse and Groom in King Street in Cambridge. One evening at the regular meeting of the Cambridge University Science Fiction Society, CUSFS, Richard Pinch knew John Conway, the well-known father of combinatorial game theory, and the conversation moved on from John Conway to game theory, and then to von Neumann's definition of what made a game, which was something like the people playing the game must know they are playing it, the rules must be known by everyone playing the game, there must be an agreed method for defining who has won. So everyone tried to think of things we thought of as games that did not meet all these criteria. After abandoning the idea of games with random rules and games that had no clear winner, the idea developed of a game in which you didn't know you were competing in until you weren't. The aim was to avoid thinking about a particular thing. Finchley Central was seen as something that no one would normally think about, and was slightly comical, and so became the thing to not think about. On thinking about it, you had lost, or out of the game, and would indicate this by sticking your arm in the air. All the other players, generally a group of fellow CUSFS people who were present, aware of the existence of the game, and were awake/sentient, then had to avoid thinking about why someone had just stuck their arm in the air. The game generally was over in a minute or so, and a surprise victor crowned, to nobody else's surprise. The game was born in this moment. Maybe not with what it is nowadays called, but there it was. But still, who was the guy who told Adrian about the Finchley Station variation which would turn into the game? Well, John T would get one final email from someone who was in the CUSFS, a man named Mark Hazlitt, who would send him this email. I am the person identified by Adrian McCrickard. I've been playing Finchley Central since 1976 or 1977. At the time, it had only one rule, which is if you ever think of Finchley Central, you lose. It was played extensively by members of the Cambridge University Science Fiction Society. Many of the veterans of that time will greet each other with the words, "I lose." I forget exactly who invented it, but I think it might have been Nick Lau in answer to the problem of creating a simple game that was not amenable to game theory. See John Conway. Analysis. It is likely that Richard Pinch, or possibly Anonymous, posed the question or indeed invented the game. At the time, we did not realize what a viral concept it was, and I continued to lose from time to time, now 30 years on. So finally, we know who was the person who told Adrian about the game. But who exactly created it? We don't know. Might be a bad answer for a video that's almost like 10 minutes long, but we seriously don't know. All we do know is that the CUSFS was the group that collectively was there when the game was made. So possibly it was created by everyone who was there that night, but how did it spread? We don't exactly know how. Some people believe that the name was changed when British people wanted to tell others about the game, but since most people don't know what Finchley Central is, they had to make up a new name that was easier to understand. And so that's how the game was made, and how it became a phenomenon like no other. So if you ever lose the game and you're mad, blame the British for creating the game.
Me mood, yeah? Because I live in a shithole!
That was the video. Woohoo. Yeah. So thanks for watching this. I don't know if it's that good, because while researching for this video, I thought this was original. I thought this was an original idea. Then I look at YouTube. There's a video that's exactly like this, but a bit longer. It's also better than this video. So yeah, that was a bit shocking. You can check it out in the description or in the comments. I think I'm gonna make it in the description. But yeah, so that's where the game comes from. It's always the British, eh? It's always the British. They always create the most craziest stuff. They created Crying Mule, dude. They created the game. What else have they created? Races. Yeah, so subscribe to my channel, and yeah, I don't know what the next video is gonna be. I'm currently in like a role. I'm now writing a different video. Yeah, so thanks for watching and subscribe, please. Also, thanks for watching the Bendy video, guys. That was pretty cool.
Subscribe to my channel!